Good evening, friends, family, students, and colleagues of past and present. I am beyond honored that you've come to join me tonight as I share what I believe to be the heart of what I've grown to understand about teaching English over the past 32 years. Though I will be packing up my classroom for the final time this spring, for those of you who are looking forward to a fresh start come August, I impart this argument not to criticize or challenge you, but to merely extend any wisdom from the vista that has been built over an entire career. As high school educators, we know that life with a capital L, inhibits us from reaching countless students by the time they reach high school. My students have borne witness to countless unspeakable traumas, have shouldered onerous responsibilities, and questioned the validity and relevance of their public education. It is a tribute that I pay today to those who have withstood the personal and academic battles they faced through their formative education and stuck it out. Because no matter how I've tried to create a time space continuum upon entering room 1303, and encouraged students to leave distractions at the door, I've ultimately learned that it is fruitless to mandate that all students adjust to the demands of the classroom. The classroom The classroom exists for kids' sake and must amend itself to the needs of the student. A fruitful classroom must prioritize the desires of the student, and the student's concerns must become the classroom's concerns in order for students to find relevance in what our academic environments have to offer. It is as true as it is exhausting, colleagues, that to make an English curriculum competitive with what was once MySpace or Tumblr or TikTok, and now the innovations of AI and inner ear implants or eye screen graphs, it takes a lot of work. But that work, as it always has, must start with the student, their interests, their dreams, and their lives. To be a student-centered educator has been a lofty goal since the advent of life adjustment by progressive educators who wanted to teach literature and composition for their possible contributions to such youthful concerns as getting along with one's family, dating, making friends, and developing one's personality, or to the more adult concern of getting and keeping a job. These educators knew what the best of us do. There is very little we as teachers can actually do to make kids read a book when they are hell-bent not to, or to write a poem when they don't find it gratifying. The only thing we as educators can endeavor to do is fool our students into wanting to read a novel that has contributed to our American cultural fabric, or trick them into needing to free an idea trapped in their memory in a series of poetic lines, both in jammed and end stopped. Fortunately, I have bamboozled a student or two in my years as a high school teacher, and I'd like to share a lesson or two about how to bring students to your proverbial kidney table. The first lesson is do what you can. Many of us have been in this career long enough to have known class sizes of 38 and teaching assignments that included 3 different preps with only 1 period to prepare. Fortunately, the Social Media Reparations Act of 2023 funded a renaissance of our education system, increasing the average teacher's salary by half and in reinvigorating the teaching force by incentivizing talented practitioners into classrooms all around the country. But even with that Facebook cash on hand, we still found ourselves teaching too many students how to write at a time. Though we may still not have a manageable number of students to which we respond thoughtfully, fight the formula of the written word. Kids need more from us than to be their very expensive technician of how to fill in the blanks of a paragraph. Sure, it's easy to grade. I'll save that kettle of fish to address at another retirement party. And it does create a sense of objectivity, but they're not really expressing themselves in a prescribed structure, and you have deprived yourself of seeing their full potential. As Roger Appleby, an educator who wrote quite a lot about our profession, wrote, there are few experiences that evoke the flow the teacher feels in seeing a young person mature in language power, in human relations, and the power to use words orally and in writing so as to achieve adequate adjustment for himself. If the goal is for a student to see the value in how he's adjusted himself to be more linguistically capable and therefore powerful, there is no choice for your teaching environment to become productively messy and creatively chaotic. Years ago, back in 2019, I went rogue. I was tired of the organization of fall trimester, narrative, winter trimester, argumentative, and spring trimester, informative. I was tired of believing that I was teaching novels to kids that weren't actually reading. I was tired of teaching. Then the COVID-19 pandemic struck, and I was forced to find a silver lining in clouds that were even darker than a year before. I thus learned the second lesson that I wanted to impart tonight. Make a methodological mess. It occurred to me one evening when I was confined to our house during that pandemic and listening to my husband's Zoom about fantasy baseball draft for a practically phantasmic pandemic season, that the way he analyzed one player's worth over another's was as artful and impressive as anything I would ever hope to do when I analyzed fictitious characters or authors' choices through a gender lens. Wouldn't it be more interesting for students to explain something to me that they have expertise in, rather than expect them to analyze something for me that I have expertise in? The answer is yes, but you, dear colleagues, have to be willing and ready to make that incredible mess. There is truly no order or much logic to the design of a classroom environment that allows students to write to their own ends. Using the brilliant Kelly Gallagher's model from Write Like This, students in my class began to write about topics that mattered to them. Exercising the hurt of their parents' divorce, analyzing the pros and cons of Cam Newton's departure from the New England Patriots, and taking a stand on the single-use plastics in the cafeteria. LeBrant wrote, selection calls for many freedoms: to choose thoughtful rereading instead of a new book, to satisfy a temporary curiosity, to explore a personal problem, to offer interpretations at variance with the teachers or the critics. When students have the expansive freedom to not only choose between prompts, but to choose to write about anything they choose, their exposure to writing for different and authentic audiences also must be one of their considerations. Word choice matters anew when teenagers are imagining the writing they'd post on a Reddit forum for their favorite video game versus how their words should be altered when writing for a novice like me. This exploration should be sanctioned inside a classroom, no matter how messy it looks to the administrator popping in to observe. Out of context, he may notice that kids are talking about last week's Powder Puff football game or reading the incorrigible comments below a haphazardly researched Press Citizen article about Eastside high schools. But the academics at work really have more to do with surveying models of real-world writing than goofing around or especially avoiding their learning objective. I'll leave you and my teaching career by summing up my argument this way. Teaching is in service to the student. Our teaching lives must adjust not to not only what students need curricularly, but what students want in order to hook them and make them more active participants in their own educations. We know in this career things change all the time. We sometimes feel like we can't possibly handle another initiative, program, or survey of our opinions that inevitably never seem to be heeded by anyone who has the power to make any change. But what is important to know is that what is old often becomes new again. Cyclical curriculum of the 1920s, differentiated instruction of the one-room schoolhouse days, and student choice in writing of the progressive era. As society and its needs evolve, so too do the demands of education. It is the true master teacher who can improve their practice according to their district's demands, their society's demands, while still holding their students' engagement and achievement to be their ultimate priority. Thank you very much for your time and attention this evening. I am humbled and honored again to have worked with you and learned alongside you for so long. Thank you and good night.